Please tell us more about how you started your career. What other roles did you have before getting into the startup and investment worlds?
My previous activity was I went through economics as a educational background in university, and I started to work in sales and business development. And by doing this, I realized that there are many things happening in the innovation zone. It started with the conference in 2010. It's called TEDx. It's from the framework of TED conferences. And because of this conference, I discovered the concept of co-working, and this ClujHUB started.
Who are the first people that you met in this industry, and what attracted you to it? I mean, with startups and later with the investment world.
Actually, it wasn't more connected to the. I wasn't thinking at investment world at that moment. Maybe many of us were learning what a startup is and if that is possible to have it in Romania, and. It started from innovators, kind of like people which were trying to solve things in different ways, and of course they were predominantly entrepreneurs at the start of their road, not necessarily deep tech, high tech, what we are talking now. They were entrepreneurs which were trying to solve old problems in relative new ways, and some of them started to get into technology and doing teams together with business people, with technology people, and this was the type of teams which were trying to attract into a co-working space, into a hub, which it wasn't a lot to explain at that moment, but why to work together and not to stay in an apartment and rent it and still be there. It wasn't, let's say, in 2012 when the first steps of ClujHUB were happening. It wasn't very exotic, this discussion. We were, I think, just starting to invest, all of us as professionals, into networking, into connecting with other people next to us, and not solving things in one way in which we've been educated or trained into a job.
Do you still really remember when was the first time you heard about startups, about this concept, and what was the context in which you heard about startups?
Here, it's this happened in the context of How to Web, and I think this brought a lot of awareness into the local environment. Of course, it was at that moment it was happening in Vienna, also Pioneers. Which is it's very well connected with Speed Invest and other investment funds in Austria, and those were the contexts where we were exploring these concepts. It was at How to Web in Romania, Speed Invest in Vienna, and we were trying to be present in both of them. And of course, in Bucharest at How to Web, there was a lot of connection with a lot of people. Like this, I also met Vlad Stan, which was doing the first co-working space. We were the second co-working space, but let's say the ClujHUB, it's the longest living in the market. And we also collaborated, made this early collaboration very light in terms of what we are exchanging, but we shared the same brand in Cluj and in Bucharest, and this was very good in terms of uniting these parts of Romania in order to work together. This is still needed, and we still need to put effort into this, and we see value out of these interactions between different regions of the country.
You mentioned ClujHUB, and I want to ask you if it started as a co-working space, or did you also mean it to be an umbrella for programs, for different programs needed to help entrepreneurs, to help founders?
We were thinking at helping, but we weren't so complex into the thinking. We didn't know about all these concepts of incubation, acceleration, pre-seed investments, seed investments, late seed investments, and so on. We're thinking that, oh, these things exist, but Romania is not ripe yet for that. So things started from offering an infrastructure and an infrastructure to live with your company, and an infrastructure where you could interact with different people through events, through meetups, and to discover other ways how to do it, to discover new people which to bring into your company, and especially to discover potential clientele. It wasn't, we weren't thinking so far at that moment. Little by little things evolved, and we started to arrange also timid programs or incipient programs, this was also a good way to collaborate with this time with Recap in Bucharest. And we are doing a program called Sprint Point in Cluj, and we are kind of supporting each other, them coming to Cluj and supporting them into the hub, we coming to Bucharest and doing different things, especially on the investment side.
What inspired you to start a community? After all, I think this was also a case with ClujHUB. For other founders, to bring them together. And you mentioned earlier, what was their response? Why should they come there? What's in it for us? Or I don't know.
It's a good question, and it's very much, I think, related to individual answers. Like it's very I'm sure that everybody who's colleagues in the environment which are doing this type of activities, they have kind of an innate need, on the other hand, a certain innate ability to go to be outgoing, and also to welcome people and come together. It wasn't this sense of community in which it might be the fact of belonging to something, and then if you don't find something good enough, you try to set it up. Or it's the fact that together we can be more resilient, we can be more stronger, we can discover different pathways, creativity, that putting more people, more diverse people into the same room, you can have multiple answers to certain problems. We're doing even some sessions of kind of business feedback, or in which somebody was presenting his challenge, and from the circle, people were coming with different feedbacks. I think it's very much connected with the internal motivation and internal abilities of different people to do this.
Did you see the concept, this kind of concept of a co-working space for startup founders anywhere else outside Romania, and that's how you decided that maybe Cluj could benefit from such a space?
Yeah, we saw this happening in other parts, and we didn't necessarily saw that it will gonna work, or it will gonna be a breakthrough or something like that. It wasn't very much about let's offer this possibility, and let's see if it will gonna fit. And in some other ways, it wasn't that it should fit. We don't know if it will gonna fit, but it should fit. So let's see what we should do in order to make it happen. Because it wasn't huge amount of testing which we did, not planned testing, but very incremental and very step-by-step testing of this works, this doesn't work, this works, this doesn't work. So it was also a strong dedication to find a model, to localize actually a model which should work in the benefit of a local community. This gathered also a lot of frustration on the way. I was trying from the start to find partners with who to do this, and it wasn't very much that, oh, you're crazy, what is this, this is not working, let us do our thing, you do your thing, I see you're prototyping and testing all sorts of things, we hope it will gonna work, but we don't think it's all gonna work. It was something like that. And it was really a lot of frustration to go over, and a lot of determination, because we're seeing from the first steps, from the small feedback, positive feedback which we're receiving, the fact that it was positive inputs, and even though it wasn't in a small location. And actually, I think it helped that it was in a small location. Later, the space grew 10 times in terms of volume of space. But if we would have started in a larger space with this development which we needed to do, I don't think it would work. So things align. It wasn't also a challenge that the space at one moment it was too small, but now thinking back, it was a good challenge to have, because it kept us condensed, focused onto those tens of people which we were having as users of the space. Of course, there were also hundreds of people which were attending the events, the meetups, each month. Yeah, they were into the hundreds of people.
Do you remember when you first started thinking about opening such a space in Cluj, and how long did it take you? And you mentioned also partners. How hard was it to find the partners and the space, and also the money? I think definitely money were involved to actually launch this project.
It wasn't. We didn't think it with the end in mind. We are teaching that now that this it's good. It's needed in order to scale fast. We started as an exploratory project in which we needed the space for us. We were a couple of us looking for a space where to work, so we came together into this, it wasn't think as something towards the profitability part. It wasn't something which we figured it out as being something to cover its costs, and to the profit to be in the impact which you deliver. And it started from this. We didn't think it from the start in terms of reaching to unicorns and hosting them, or so-called unicorns, and we weren't thinking so complex. And we were kind of discovering step by step. It wasn't very much at the start built on non-technical entrepreneurs and on developers, which were starting to become freelancers or making small teams. And it wasn't also very much focused on different technical meetups, which was taking the understanding of developers from pure outsourcing to some product mindset, to some skills which are much were paid, but they needed to be in the setup of the product thinking, not only delivering some technology for a foreign client.
What was the landscape back then, inclusion in other cities in the western part of Romania, I mean Timișoara, also Oradea, regarding co-working spaces and places that founders could meet and talk, and also have programs that would help them go a step further?
I think the programs part appeared just 7-8 years back. At that moment, there weren't too many programs. I think if we can call it a program or close towards a program, there were the startup weekends which were happening at that moment, and nothing after startup weekend. It wasn't very much about the physical infrastructure startup weekends, then a couple of hackathons, but let's say startup weekend was the largest well-known hackathon focused on tech startups. And in terms of other locations where things were happening, it was at Cluj, Bucharest, and Timișoara. At one moment, there were some initiatives in Târgu Mureș, if I remember, but the other places didn't have a lot of critical mass. And on a different note, I would say some crazy determination, because it wasn't anything in the frame of business reasons into that. So it was a kind of a back motivation, which sometimes also I wasn't necessarily understanding it for myself, but it was a drive to bring those people with crazy idea, with different ways of thinking, to come together and thinking that, look, if we are just 10 or tens of people with an exotic mind, if we come together, we can discover more, or we could determine more, a bigger thinking like this to appear, and hopefully startups to appear in a more volume way.
What do you think that it's the secret ingredient for Cluj, and why do you think that it's important for Romania not to be centralized or localized just in Bucharest, but to have more cities that develop as hubs for startups and for founders?
Here I think we need to relate, or I think it's enough. We have big enough data in terms of the tech world, kind of like the traditional outsourcing world, and what happened in Cluj compared to other locations, especially Bucharest, Timișoara, or Iași. It wasn't the will of local tech entrepreneurs, but into the software development field at the start, to go internationally and find clients and convince them that, look, from Romania with 10 developers I can help you with this and that. Do you want to give me the contract? And I think this was a determining factor, that it wasn't automotive or large corporates coming to Cluj to set up things. This happened, or it's happening now, through acquisition of larger companies. And it wasn't also the case where kind of like big tech companies like Amazon or Google or others to open offices into a location like this. It wasn't very much connected with the drive of the local entrepreneurs. They had the skills, but in Romania we need to say that we have some skills, so that's, let's say, equally distributed. In Cluj, what happened is that these entrepreneurs went abroad, and let's say the willingness to internationalize, willingness to go global at some extent, this was the determining factor, and it's complementary with what happened in Bucharest, in Iași, in Timișoara. It was something different than what they did.
How is the startup ecosystem in Bucharest different from those in, again, Cluj, Timișoara, Iași, even Piatra Neamț? There are also hubs there. What are the challenges, but also the opportunities for every part of Romania, for startup founders that are equally in these cities or these areas?
This is what I like the most at my, let's say, setup. The fact that I'm kind of I'm sharing myself in between living in Cluj and activating also a lot in Bucharest, and visiting from time to time also Iași and Timișoara. It's Bucharest, it's very interesting from the fact that it's very pragmatic, and in startups you need a commercial driven focus and to have people with this thinking. In Cluj, people are coming with the gift of or looking to solve things in a good way, in a almost perfect way sometimes, which is good to have at some extent. Also, the commercial approach, you need to have it to be focused on it until a certain extent. It's not that one or the other we can be successful without the other one. These are the differences and between Cluj and Bucharest, and I think in terms of when we start to think about Romanian startups and not necessarily about a Cluj startup or a Bucharest startup, because I think this is something which we needed to do because the ecosystems were relatively defined. You need to define the ecosystem for Bucharest to know with who to work in Bucharest. You need to define who's in Cluj in order to see with who to work in Cluj. But in order to create a critical mass, a big enough critical mass, we need to collide these words, and this started to happen, and now I think we need to acknowledge this and to accelerate it and to do it. I think we started to do it as a national community focused on tech startups. We started to do it without realizing we are doing this. Now we need to do this from knowing it and by doing it by will, not by that it's happening, and to bring this complementarity into the companies. Also, when we start to think about for example, Timișoara is very focused on automotive. I think they have good specialists also on microelectronics, on hardware. Kind of similarly, it's in they are closer to the border in Timișoara, so their international thinking, it's let's say more natural than the others. When we look at Iași, maybe there is a little bit more affordability in terms of the pricing of the workforce, but we don't necessarily need to think focus only on that. It's also that they are very good technical people, and they are humble, and it's something which is very, very necessary into the startup world to have this step-by-step approach and not to scale everything.
You mentioned that you're going back and forth between Bucharest and Cluj, but you also wear many hats. Please tell us more about Techcelerator. You're also part of the program. How did this project start, and what were your plans concerning this program when it first started? Mm-hmm. What were you planning or wishing Techcelerator to do in the ecosystem?
Coming from this complementarity part and the multidisciplinarity, this was the main driver in terms of putting two programs together, what we were doing in Cluj and what it was happening in Bucharest. It was also a good team match because we worked a long time before deciding this, supporting each other, even though we were doing similar things, but let's say more localized. naturally it came to this idea of putting things together. It was also facilitated by the angel investors which we were working. It was the case of Dan Mihaescu, Sergiu Roșca, which were close to our both programs. And they came to this idea that let's make kind of like this tripartite collaboration in which to explore how we can work together. And my biggest goal with Techcelerator, it was to have a national institution which is doing acceleration programs. And this is Techcelerator, and which started in 2017 informally, and in the market in 2018. And I'm very happy that at this moment, or until this moment, and from now on also, we are already having alumni from across the country. We are not necessarily connected or individualized with a certain specific focus on one city. We'll very much to think about Romania, and even more than that, we are looking at how Romania can play a bigger role in the region, and we are putting our focus in Southeastern European startups, and this already happened in almost 20 programs now. So we are very happy as a united team and cross cities team about this.
Do you remember what happened with the startups from the first batch of a Techcelerator? With those that went through the program, what happened to them? Did they receive any more funds? Did some of them tank?
For sure. And now it's funny that you're asking me this, because from yesterday I'm having an email in my inbox about one of those companies. So we are talking about their new round. And for sure, some of them disappeared or restructured their activity, even or it was at a pivoting, or they dropped the startup activity and they are doing some other things. In all the programs, we have a 75% survival rate, which is a pretty good number. In the same time, it is restating the fact that high risk or high gain, it's associated with high risk. So when you start with something into the startup scaling topic, you need to take also this into consideration and to execute all your steps, knowing that you might fail. So what is your plan B? What is your plan C for your startup? If not, what is your plan B personally? So personally, it can be that I need to maybe merge with another company or different other options.
How are the teams prepared 5 years ago, the first team that entered the program, and how are the teams now? Do you see an evolution in their, I don't know, they're more evolved? Do they have finer touches now as when they did 5 years ago? And also about their pitches, are they more prepared now, or do they know what to say better than they did than the teams that pitched in the first years?
First of all, these 5 years brought a lot of evolution on us and on our organization as Techcelerator, as Gapminder. It's brought a lot of evolution on how we are perceiving things. We changed a lot, and we weren't planning to do that. So let's say we were open to adapting, but we weren't figuring out all these things which we are seeing now by looking back. So first of all, we changed, we evolved, and for sure the environment overall evolved. the way how we are implementing the programs now, it's different. Now, I wouldn't say that it's totally changed, but it's different. Let's say at the start it was a lot of focus on the mentoring part. Now the startups became, also in terms of their pitching and also in terms of their objectives, they are much more pragmatic. And I think all of us learned in this, I don't know, you could say that startups in Romania have maximum 20 years. It's something like 10 plus, and now it's debatable where we should stop. We learned into this period the pragmatism of the startup world, and the fact that you need to talk about KPIs. You need to think about what's your concrete ask. You need to look at your projections. You need to see at your rate of growth, at your pricing, but also at the average contract value. So are many things which this play, let's say, because first it was at the playground, and it evolved into an industry. It is surprisingly fast also, just in 15 years to have this change. And I'm remembering moments when we were talking with let's say serious businesses or serious business people coming from the corporate world. Oh, you guys with the startups, you're playing with that. It's or it's students, or it's crazy scientists which want to do crazy things which will never happen. Come on, let's work and do serious things. And by going back in time and remembering this, I would say that it's a very big change in pretty okay time. I wouldn't say that it wasn't a huge amount of time in which these things changed. And also this changed brought also new or this evolution brought new people, which brought more muscles into the industry. We are seeing in all the well-funded companies those serious people, or those serious profiles of people into the corporate world, which were saying 10 years ago that this is a playground. And I'm not criticizing them, I'm just stating that this was normally what it was happening. That those profiles are now, a part of them are part of startups. And it's really a new vertical of our economy, which got into shape. And it's after crawling, you have some running, then you have some sprinting, and so I think now we are no more crawling. We know what's about into this world. We know the fact that you need education, you need enough hackathons, you need incubators, you need accelerators to work together with investment funds in order to make this grow even more, and to add more and more layers of success.
Talking about the verticals, when did the verticals for startups start to diversify? I don't know, now we are talking about medtech, climate tech, legal tech, all kinds of tech. When did this shift from just startups as a concept as a whole, involving tech, and led to this kind of diversification of businesses?
Yeah, I think we are talking even about the matrix, because you have verticals, but you also have stages of development of the startup. So you can have this diversification vertically, horizontally, or in a mix of both. And for us, it started after 2 years of implementing program agnostic, industry agnostic. We started this diversification. So this happened in 2020, and it was a vertical diversification, focused on, we started to do with together with Google for Startups and together with Dan Oros, this program Advancing AI, which was focusing from that time only on AI ML companies, even though they were a little bit of chimera far there somewhere. But we managed to scout nice companies, and also in the previous years we mapped around 100 plus companies, and still it wasn't into the early stages. And I think this diversification, it is related also to the evolution of the understanding of the startup world better. That you don't need only mentoring, you need to go even more deeper and to put it under a certain microscope. And also the fact that when you look so in depth, you start to see specialization also into the those which are operating into the environment. Some can help you on the go-to-market and into the international part, or at least we should think like that. Then we have the investment readiness perspective. Then you have, when you start to talk about scaling, you start to have growth marketing. You need to have sales, channel development, pricing, business to business sales, or partnerships. So it's a pretty complex system, the startup system. But you, as a newcomer, as an emergent economy on this field, you'll be adopting it step by step. So we can see it also that first we had only mentoring and networking, which was giving you access to people, which was, some of them were giving you mentoring. Then you start to have a certain type of programs. Then you start to have niched or dedicated programs, because there are many programs now with different perspectives. Rather are those vertically, and I think now we start to the ecosystem to look a little bit back also at the origination of the startups, that they are coming, where we need to support people through hackathons, through incubators, in order to help them walk the first steps, which are probably the most critical. This, I think, it's also something in which also our government is starting to observe this, and also local authorities are trying to start to get involved. And it's very good to start to have this complexity, but we also, I think, where we should catch up more, it's also at the responsibility in terms of dealing with this complexity, also from the founders, also for those like us who assist and operate together with startups or invest into them. It's very much this strategic support which you can give, specific activity, specific help which you can give many times, or now it starts to become a pinpoint solution. So if you really pinpoint where they have the problem, 10 other problems will be solved through solving one problem.
You have a bigger picture about the Romanian startup ecosystem as a whole. But I want to ask you, how do you see this Romanian ecosystem in the larger ecosystem of Central and Eastern Europe?
I'm happy that you're asking this and that you're having this perception, because when we talk about when we talk about critical mass, and when we talk about the history, we start to have a certain pathway which goes back, and we can have this introspection. The challenge which we had in Romania with this city approach, that city ecosystems, which it's kind of still happening, and we need to somehow overcome it, or to generalize it at the level of Romania, in terms of maybe somebody from Cluj or Timișoara can be very good on doing a certain offering a certain program to the overall of Romania. And this challenge which we are having it with this history, by looking it ahead, we'll be having it again with countries in Eastern Europe, because if you look at Bay Area, you have a couple of hundreds of thousands of developers. Those couple of hundreds of developers, you find it only in Eastern Europe, or you find it in Eastern Europe if you merge it together. So if you want successes like Bay Area, or some type of successes like that, because will not be no region, no country will be able to catch up that. You need to think at this critical mass of people involved or exposed or close to this environment. And if we want to be successful as a ecosystem further, we need to expand also our understanding towards the region. And this, I think, it will bring much more cooperation or competition, but not competition in terms of the players which we are in Romania. And by thinking 5 years, 10 years ahead, we need to see our play into this much larger environment. And certain countries in the region, maybe Greece, maybe Serbia, Ukraine, but all of them, I think, could benefit from what we can offer. And of course, it's not going and colonizing that. It's by going together with locals, but in a maybe more correlated strategy of players in Romania, and to come with something systematized for this region. We need to explore first. We need to be aware of that. We need to realize the fact that we could play a role there, and then to see how. And I think we are smart enough, and we have enough experiences in our back in order to pinpoint what we should do in terms of that.
And building on this idea and the idea of international expansion for Romanian startups, how do you think that we can make it easier for founders to meet and collaborate with investors and, I don't know, other startups or other entities outside Romania in this bigger ecosystem that we are part of?
I think we need, in terms of companies, to go there, because the ecosystem, it's one discussion and has to do with this multi-country approach and regional approach. And also for startups, we keep this diversity, geographical diversity, but it's tackled in a different way. For startups, I think we need to make a couple of steps back and to get towards the problem and solution fit. From this perspective, I think as in Eastern Europe, it is not only about Romania, we don't address big enough problems as a bias, because we are not such a complex economy. We have regular problems, let's say, but more advanced economies had these regular problems, and they had the innovators which solved the part of it. So you cannot consolidate too much on small problems. You need to find bigger problems. So in terms of finding bigger problems, it's also about validation. And I'm still at the problem part, because when you go at the solution part, many founders, they get in love with their solution, and they forget the problem, and they want just the solution to push it there and to make it a success. So keeping the problem into your hand and really understanding it. It is said that a good problem has more solutions. So find a good problem and big enough problem. By having this, keeping this focus on validating a problem, countries around you, or countries to which you might have access through friends, family, networking, conferences at which to go, can help you validate that problem in more countries than your home market. To validate it in your home market, which each home market has its own entropy. It has its own internal things which are a barrier in terms of scaling, because how you deal with ANAF, with the fiscal administration in Romania, for sure it will not be a way how it will not be the same way how you do it in Croatia or in Serbia or whatever. And going that discussion, which was very well hammered at the startup weekends, get out of the building and get out there and talk with people. Now I think it's very relevant to put it, get out of your country. Not only about your not only from out of your building, get out of your country, go to conferences, go to just book a plane. We have many low costs which fly far enough, close enough, you have where to go, and go there and discover, because we saw enough situations in which your startups have the financial support to spend money, but they spend it and they come, oh, it was the fail. Okay, but that you should test that before, and don't go for sure it will go there. We go and we make those investments, we make those expenses there, and we should get something. Sometimes you'll not get anything if you didn't test that. So it's better to test all these assumptions, to test the use case, rather than testing it with, let's say, 100 people in Romania, maybe testing it with 50 from 3 countries, doesn't matter which ones, or of course your target, some of your target companies or proxies to those companies, would be much more valuable. Especially that in Europe, we are more focused on business to business, so you don't need to talk with people on the street. Maybe you speak or not the same language, but you find everybody on LinkedIn, you go and you test.
Coming also to another organization that you've co-founded and you work with, ROTSA, and again with this bigger picture about what's happening in Romania that you have. I want to ask you, how do you think that the ecosystem work better here, and organizations, different organizations and different founders from all around Romania can work better together in order to grow, to help each other, and not just be islands, separate islands. Everybody's doing their piece, and we are working here when we don't care about what's happening right next to us. How can we all work better together and help build this Romanian startup ecosystem and bring it further and further?
It's kind of, this is also the answer which we try to, or the answer which stays at the base of Romanian Tech Startups Association. I'll kind of do, it's a little bit of a recapitulation of certain points which we talked. And it's the fact that we have this level of development in the startup world, but we jump some steps and we forget about certain things at the base. For example, how is it the incubation part? Everybody likes acceleration in terms as a definition, as a semantic. It seems much more faster, much more speedy. But for example, in Romania, we don't have a network of incubators. We don't have state-owned or privately or university, however you want to call it. Maybe we can point out here just Innovation Labs, which is doing a great job on this topic. But other than that, are scattered things which probably don't mean too much, especially connected with the potential which we have on that. So in ROTSA, it started from the idea of solving this part of or bringing its contribution to solving this part of incubation, because we see it as a tactical response, relatively easy to do compared to how big is the problem, and what it will be the impact of it. Another part, as you said, of how to work together. First, you need time for that. So, but you also need a mechanism and to win people's trust in terms of we can work shoulder to shoulder or back to back into something, and not to be kind of, when you attack, it's hard to also attack a certain dimension, let's say the incubation part. It's difficult also to hold your back. You cannot be in twice. So it's the idea of ROTSA. It's also for more organizations and doers to come together and to cover each other's back, while the operational team can focus and solve this issue, which is issue of incubation, which is a messy thing to do. It's not something. It's so much easy to do venture capital investments. It's so much easy, maybe even to do angel investments, to do accelerators with validated companies. But from where those validated companies are coming, or at least companies with validated problems, is not that somebody from out of your country or from the government or from wherever will come to solve this. It's also us which are gonna solve also this thing, and as fast and as better we can solve this, we will advance faster on more funds, more money to deploy, more validated companies with big enough and large enough and well enough validated problems. And this, for sure, it is building also on that national dimension, because it's not enough to have an institution as an accelerator to deliver programs at the national level. It needs Miorica. It's hard to work with, or hard to beat. So we need more in terms of grasping this ideology of working together and really putting skin in the game into this.
We've covered the topic of the ecosystem from its beginning and its evolution up until now. And I want to ask you, how do you see it in the future? Where are we heading as an ecosystem? I don't know. What's next for us? Maybe what's lacking for us?
What we talked until now, I don't think it's anything which is we can put it at the chapter of wishful thinking. I think all the things which we talked about what happened and where we are heading, it's a consolidated road already, and it's a road which cannot go back. It's for sure the evolution which we saw it in the last 10 years, last 5 years, it only be bigger and bigger. The train left the station, the snowball effect is there and it's happening. So I'm only positive about this, and especially the fact that we are into an emergent economy where you have a good cost of living and you have smart people, and we are big enough in terms of population compared with the surrounding countries. So we definitely have a play into this. For sure, those which have enough experience and they didn't capitulate it on the road until now, they are awesome assets to help our economy and all of us to work together into taking this even farther. And as I was saying, that coming from an emergent economy with this good cost, affordability, we cannot say that it's cheap. It's affordable, and other countries we already see on their GDP, on their financial projections, that they are not staying too good. And we talk about large empires, let's say, and Romania and Eastern Europe, it will have a great follow-up on the startup zone. We need to continue to put bets, if I can say that exaggeratedly, into this, and to bring more people into the technology environment than moving them towards the product part, understanding that we can do it big time on the startup exits or startup world, because we need to do startups in order to exit them and then do new startups, and to have profits reinvested into this zone. This is a very interesting and needed thing which I think we need to perceive in order to understand from where next steps of growth will come, from reinvesting what will gonna exit as profits, and also the responsibility of dealing with professionalism in terms of executing on the startups preparation. But we see it also in terms of founders. From new generation, they are not starting from zero. They, as an environment, also you guys, what you are doing in terms of communicating all this information, it is helping founders to start from +10 than at what a founder was starting 5 years ago. Other points will be the fact that we should focus on deep tech and AI, machine learning, things which are not necessarily because of ChatGPT. ChatGPT is coming just to validate something which kind of Eastern Europe was already going into that zone, because of the mathematics of the engineers, what they are being taught in school, and for sure more programs are jumping to support this, focusing on AI ML, focusing on cybersecurity, continuing to do this international validation of problems are things which are our responsibility to continue to do it. Of course, this bigger cohesiveness and culture of exchanging. I work with startups until this step. Now you take it further, and maybe I'm meeting them in the next step, or maybe not. But everybody to understand what's their specialization and on what each player should put a focus, and complete it as the puzzles of or pieces of a puzzle.
What's our identity at this point? What do you think that's our identity as a startup ecosystem, and what can we become?
I think we can become a regional player, like an avant-post of region in terms of offering investments and access to the Romanian networks as we build them. Romania, I think it can be a great investment hub for all the countries in the region. We have good relationships with the United States. We have good relationships with Germany, France, UK. We are well positioned into this zone, also close to Turkey. Also, so Romania should play a regional zone, but this is more something which needs to be driven and enhanced by the governmental part. So we can do so much into this zone. What we can be, I think, more of what we are. I think is not something from the fairy tales which will gonna happen or we can activate. I think we can be more of what we are, a resilient ecosystem, growing, and on what zone maybe we can focus. It's on how to grow faster or how to grow more than what we are already growing. And this, it's related to revisiting what we learned until now, to acknowledge that we are good. I am good at this, and I need to say no to other 10 things which are needed around me, but will drive my focus away. I think we are not, for example, I think we are not using enough our diaspora. So connected with this internationalization aspect and doing global startups for global problems and not just starting from local ones. A bigger communication, interconnection with the people which are already abroad from a long time or from just a short time, because we have companies like fintech West, like Druid, like Typing DNA, which founders moved recently to New York, to London. They are well connected to what is happening now there, because if we would connect with Elon Musk now for the startup environment in Romania, I don't think it can deliver so much. We need people which are timely, of a timely use, kind of like, this to do more of what we are already doing, and more responsibly in relationship to the colleagues from the ecosystem, or neighboring colleagues, if we talk about different cities or regions.